is healthy. And I'll yield my time. Carlos?
Yeah, one thing I think that like understanding what a safe and stable house is just so important, because for me, man, I grew up in Oberlin, Ohio. It's in Lorain County, about 35, 40 minutes away from Cleveland. So when I came to the halfway house, I was, man, about 40 minutes away from where I was born and raised at. And after serving that 10-year prison sentence, and I believe that that halfway house I believe that that halfway house was a bit more safe and stable than me actually going to my father's house. Even though my father ain't into no jive or nothing like that, you know. I mean, he's just, I mean, he works and that's what he does. So it wasn't gonna be no jive. But the reason why I say that it was more safe and stable at the halfway house, because I wasn't around, you know, all of the people that I would have been around if I would have went back there, you know. So, and that's the greatest challenge, is not like falling back into, you know, who you were, who you was. Because when you do 10 years like I've done, it's like people, they want to see who left, you know. They ain't thinking about the new you know, they know the person that left. And it'd be tempting to like show them that. And I seen that when I was just going back and forth on visits, like weekend visits, and that could have been a little bit risky. So I would say that the safe housing and stable housing is definitely important for you to be able to make this transition. But you got to really know what safe and stable actually is, you know? So for me, it was that halfway house. I was able to just stay focused and go to work. It was, I mean, that's what I was able to do, you know, and really get myself established. So yeah, that was definitely big for me.
So coming from prison, going back to familiar could be unsafe.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely right. It can be unsafe not only for you, but for other people as
For
well.
other people too.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just like, so then that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. But it's so enticing to get around that, because when you are in prison, you're around people who tolerate you. You know, you ain't around people that like want to be around you. You know, like majority of the people that is there in prison, they just tolerating you at best. But when you go into a place and they celebrating you, you know, and they like Lowe's home, and everybody is like man, throwing parties and stuff, man, that is so enticing to be around, because you just felt like, man, I done just been in hell, and that seems like heaven, you know, just to have people that just want you to be around. And that's what can, man, that's what can be tricky, because the people that's doing all of that, they just want to party, you know, they like, and they doing some of the things that y'all was doing before you had got locked up too. You know, they still doing that usually, you know, and then that's what can get kind of tricky. And that's what can create that instability, because you're not getting your foundation solidified in the correct way.
I think that's good for everybody to hear. You know, me too, because people do come home and they want to go back to the same neighborhood, back to what's familiar, without understanding the risk of that. Mary, what are your thoughts?
For myself, I feel like my safe and secure housing had to start while I was still incarcerated. My thinking first had to change. All of those people that I called my friends that I got in trouble with, who didn't, you know, cross the line to go to prison with me, the contact that I didn't have with them whenever I was incarcerated, it was like everyone just disappeared. So my thinking had to change, and I had to set small goals that I was able to achieve while incarcerated. I was not eligible for like the Alvis House or anything like that. So I went through a program that CareSource paid for. They paid for so many months rent, depending on what level I was, and they furnished an apartment for me. That gave me the opportunity to have some independence and to kind of be pushed to find a job. The only requirement that I did have to have that housing was to continue in a counseling. So I would meet with the counseling outside of prison for a period of time. I did that for about 6 months, and that gave me the connection with positive influences around me. It gave me the opportunity to meet people that I was going to excel with, It gave me hopes that I wasn't the only one that was incarcerated. Because I always heard the stigma, like if you're a convicted felon, you can't get a job. Honestly, I used that to my advantage. I walked into a pizza place and they were hiring for a manager's position. And I had just gotten finished and doing time for an assault on an officer. So I told the lady that done my interview, I said, well, at least I can defend your store. And, we kind of laughed about it, but even being with a convicted felon, like it still gave me that opportunity to get a job and to start somewhere to where I could prove to myself that I would be able to obtain employment, keep that job, and start getting the things that I need in order to live a productive lifestyle.
Hey, Joe, can you put your pronouns on the screen?
Daryl, Greg, you need to mute your
Daryl,
mic.
your mic is on, Daryl.
Have a good time, huh?
Daryl, your mic is on, brother.
Anya Jones, your mic too. Jill Hillman,
All right.
thank you.
So why don't we talk a little bit about some opportunities in the community that you guys are a part of to provide stable housing?
You say that again?
What are we doing in our own community to expand safe and stable housing options?
Yeah, so me personally, man, I just think that it's a mindset for real, because I mean, another part of my story is that, I mean, I wasn't able to rent in the places that I wanted to at the time because of my background, so the landlord wouldn't rent to me. I was trying to go to Lakewood, instead of being like right in the teeth of Cleveland. I said, man, I want to go to Lakewood, man, but I had to rent on 30th and Carnegie by the 30th projects because that's who would rent to me, and it was, but I had left from the halfway house straight to that 1-bedroom apartment because of the money that I had saved up for my minimum wage job. So I was able to secure a 1-bedroom apartment. It was roaches all through it, but it was mine. But I tell people all the time that, just look for, where you can rent at the particular time, but then work your way to actually buy. So I was able to buy a house in 2009. So, and I was able to buy where I wanted to then after I established my credit and things like that. So I think that so often we look at, man, like housing and things like that, but it's always ways to get it done, And I think that discourages people because people will be in prison and they saying, I ain't got nowhere to go, I ain't, and they automatically start to set themselves up to get back into that same lifestyle. And that's the biggest barrier, is actually the actual individual. But once they start to understand that, like, it's a solution to every problem, so that, but that's what I always tell guys is like, man, it's going to be somewhere to rent to you. And that's where you go rent at, you go rent who will rent to you, but you go ahead and keep your work history and you establish your credit, and then you'll be able to buy where you want to buy at.
So Carlos, how often do you hear similar stories like that?
Yeah, so then that's what we're creating. Yeah, so that's what we're creating, like guys really coming home and just saying, man, you know what, hey man, let me go ahead and just work and let me rent. But nowadays, man, people are getting are able to rent in better places than I was able to rent. People are able to get better jobs than I was able to get back in 2007 when the economy was declared the Great Recession. And plus the way that people are just embracing this community more now. It wasn't like that so much in 2007, but now it's just like, it's a totally different ball game, man. So now the opportunities are there for the people who are looking for it. But again, I'm seeing people come home, Harmony, where they are literally, but now it was 2 years work history. Now people are starting to look into the houses after 1 year. And it's like not even thinking about like a $300,000 house, but saying, man, I'm gonna get a $70,000 house or $80,000 house with my, $15 hour job, So, but you see that with the education. So then that's why the education is so important. When people don't know, then they be frustrated and then they don't do it. But the people that I interact with, yeah, they getting it done though.
Mary, what's been some of your experiences?
So with my experiences returning home, and it was always going back to family. Like I said, unless CareSource paid for it the last time, that lasted for about a year. And then I wanted to move back home. I had to reside in Cincinnati at that time. But since I have been home this time, it's just been a lot of personal changes, goal setting, seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that I could do everything that I put my mind to. It was more of, how am I going to get out of the hole that I'm already in? The complications that I had by renting, I wasn't able to rent a house in my name, but living with my significant other for a period of time, I don't, suggest for somebody to get into a relationship just to have a place to be, to live at. However, for my scenario, I was with somebody and the landlord had seen that I was a good tenant while I was there. I too am now buying my home that I live in now. The company that I work for, we actually partnered with a bank, Fifth Third Bank, to be able to offer home loans to individuals such as myself, who is either a convicted felon or a recovering drug addict. So there is opportunities. I just had to be patient, and I couldn't give up. Like, I had to just keep seeking and networking and communicating with other people. Everything is about a form of connection for myself today, and finding that balance within myself.
Mr. D, I know you guys got a lot going on there at the Word. Why don't you tell us a little bit?
So I think when I think about expanding, like what I'm doing in the community to expand safe and stable housing opportunities is, like Mary was saying, networking and building relationships. And so I want to know who is doing the work, and I want to be able to partner with them so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel, because there's a lot of really good reentry work being done. But again, it is not always a superficial, right? It's kind of like stealth in this kind of reentry underground railroad. And so once you're in it, you just have to network. But I do belong to justice housing committees that are formed specifically to support people with, that are justice involved, find affordable, stable housing, and just build relationships, with landlords. So I do have a few landlords that will hold apartments for me or studios for me when I know I have someone coming home from prison relatively soon, maybe within 90 days. Again, I work with the Innocence Project too, and so sometimes those releasees come home rather quickly. They don't have the reentry process experience like most people do when they're coming home from prison. They're extracted pretty quickly, got to go somewhere really quickly too. So those relationships, I think I'm continuing to expand here in Cuyahoga County.
So I feel like this next question is going to open the floodgates. What else needs to be done that you cannot do alone?
I think when it comes to you kind of have to know what the city's plan is for housing so that you can have the right conversations with the right persons when we talk about affordable housing for people with criminal convictions. Because with everything, you have to qualify for, right? And you can't provide housing resources by yourself. Like, you have to have the ability to have like the intelligent conversations and help landlords and help builders and help community members know that there's minimal risk sometimes in providing affordable housing for people coming home from prison. But there's that stigma, of a prisoner or a person that has a criminal conviction that the crime that they committed, it's highly likely they're going to reoffend or recommit. And although I do understand that, I think it's just important for us to work together to dispel some of those myths. I don't think we can do that alone.
So when you say what else need to be done that you can't do alone, is that saying where as far as a person transitioning back into society?
I would say it's more like so you guys have a pretty good overview of what's going on with reentry housing. Where else do you see the need for further collaboration to remove some of those barriers? What else do you see that you need more partnership in?
Oh, I'm just, man, the education, man, the programming, education, information, man, information. Because something that when I seen that question, I was thinking of, just, some of the guys who transition. Because sometimes they look at that and they say, man, what are some things that that need to be done, but I can't do it alone, right? And when that guy is thinking that way, I'm telling you, that stuff is poison, because it's like it really stops people from getting stuff done. One of the things that I see challenging people so much inside of prison is that they don't believe that they got what they need. Right? Because if you don't believe that you got what you need, then it starts to become depressing. So what I let people know is that, man, everything that you need, you got. Right? And everything that you got, you need. You just got to utilize what it is that you got. So often the mindset, it looks at everything that they don't have. And they'll say, man, I ain't got nobody over here. I ain't got no house. I ain't got no job, right? And it's depressing, and it keeps them in a place to where they don't even move, right? So that's something that's big. And that, like, that interaction, it has to take place to let people know, like, man, you got everything that you need. And when you wake up and be like, man, like if I wake up in the morning and I say, man, I got everything that I need to get it done, man, I'm gonna be more excited about going at the day, right? If I believe that I say, man, everything that I got, man, I need, I'm gonna be more excited about utilizing my resources, So I believe that that's something that definitely needs to really be expanded and really need to be addressed more. It's just that interaction from people like a Mary or people who have actually transitioned out into society, so they can actually let that person know who is coming home what is needed, what is required. One, that is possible. Number two, what's required, and are you willing to meet these requirements? I think that can really be really juiced up a lot,
I think to piggyback off that, and I know it's Mary's turn in a second, but I really like what Carlos is saying. The other thing I think that needs to be is education for family and friends receiving their loved ones home, because I find over the 19 years I've been doing this, it's just very hard for families to really understand what their loved ones have experienced in prison. Because I think, once you have a prison experience, if you're talking to people that haven't had that, the assumptions are thwarted. They're all off.
Right.
So, nobody understand Daryl's language when he first Carlos' language when he first came home. Like he looked like Carlos, right? He said some things people understand, but he saw things that can't unsee, heard things can't unhear, so nobody really understands that. So helping the family understand what some of the barriers are going to be, what's so overwhelming could look like for their loved ones coming home, could be a great support to help advocates like us be just more support of someone who had that incarcerated experience, because prison is not designed to cure you. It's not designed that, it's punishment. And so when you're under that punishing regime for decades, you kind of used to that. So when you come home, you have to unlearn that. And so helping families learn how to help their loved ones unpack that is going to be good too for their stability.
And one thing too, when you said that, I mean, one of the things that I'll see from family members, and I'm dead serious, man, like just working with them, and I ask them and I say, man, and they'll tell me, like, I say, man, what's going on? And they say, man, yeah, he came home and he's been home for about a month now, and he just needs to get, adjusted, he just needs to take it slow and things like that. And then I talk to the brother and he tells me like, man, yeah, man, I need to do a physical before I go get me a job and stuff like that to make sure everything working right, man. I don't want to be in. I'm like, brother, you like 35 years old. I'm like, bro, like you cannot just continue to just chill around and think that that's not going to become a problem. But one of the things that I see is that family members will be making like these, excuses of why that person hasn't gotten started. And that's what I always tell family members, man, like expect them to get started. Like, man, let them know, like, don't accept, man, you know what, hey, I can't get no job, because it's somebody hiring. It's just about, are you willing to work for what they are paying? I started out working for $6.85 an hour, but I just said I wasn't selling dope again, right? And because I was committed to not selling dope again, that put me in a space to say, man, I'll take that $6.85 an hour job. But I was serious. But again, I didn't have where, my father was going to pay for my way and he was going to take care of my food and all of that. So I knew that I had to do something. So one of the things that I always tell family members, man, I know that you are excited to have them home, but again, man, like let them know that they are great and they can get it done, right? And reasons and results. Reasons don't matter. Only thing that matters is results. And when you start to like interact with them like that, that can really elevate that mind to be like, man, let me go ahead. They won't even come out with the type of stuff that like really debilitate them, man. So that's one of the things that I definitely see with loved ones in receiving that person coming home from prison. Like it's go time, go time, go time, man.
Mary, did you have some thoughts?
I do. I also feel like there's a lack of communication within the community and people being released. Like there is groups out there that will help the family understand where an individual has been at. I know for myself, like when I entered, I didn't have mental health issues. When I came home, I had PTSD, anxiety, bipolar. Like I developed a lot of mental health, and my family didn't understand how to deal with me when I'd spent 5 years incarcerated and came home and walked into Walmart and had to get out of there. It was a lot of anger brought forward, a lot of resentments. I let my family down again because I didn't know how to deal with these things. I think that there should be a lot more communication, like I said, within the community and the loved ones. There is codependency, there's Al-Anon. Like the family does have to stop making excuses for our behaviors, because that's typically what got us in the positions that we've been in before. For myself, if my family can make excuse after excuse, they can take 1 hour out of a day, 1 day a week, and go to a meeting and better learn so they're not let down or disappointed again, and they can stop enabling those poor decisions and bad behaviors that was instilled because I developed a pattern.
Right. That's dope. Absolutely. Man, I had filled out like 15, you know how many applications I filled out, man? I was filling them puppies out back to back to back. And I remember my guy who was taking me, like my brother who was just taking me around Cleveland to these interviewers. And he looked at me, he said, Los, man, you like a professional application filler outer. Like, man, I'm getting tired watching you fill out all of these applications. Now, of course, he was still involved. He was like, man, I don't know, you might just want to think about going back, man. And I'm like, man, I ain't going back, man. I'm like, I got 7 out the way. I'm going for the 8th one, man. I'm getting closer and closer. But just having that person to say, man, like, get a job no matter what, man. And I think that so often, especially if you done came up in the streets and you've been like selling drugs and you've been making money, it's like it's kind of difficult for you to say, man, I'm gonna work at a fast food restaurant, at McDonald's, like, but I was so like on it. I'm like, I don't care where, Wendy's, McDonald's, it doesn't matter. Because I was totally convinced that I wasn't going back to where, I came from. Because it just didn't sit right with me. But yeah, that stuff is heavy from the loved ones to just like, but that's what he did though. He kept on taking me. As long as I said, man, I got another interview, he was, man, picking me up from the halfway house at like 4:30 in the morning. And I would get upset because I would like tell him that my interview is at like 5 or 5:30 or whatever to try to get him there earlier. right? My interview really at like 6:30 because I know he's gonna be like 10, 15 minutes late. So I was like always telling him like, man, hey, I got an interview at 4, 5 o'clock, man. But he was still calm regardless. And that's what was like helpful. But him just being there. So that's the type of support that was needed for me to actually get it done, but not telling me that, man, you know what, hey, man, you ain't gonna get no job or just come, that's not the support. So that's something that's heavy.
I agree with you. I want to address this one comment we have in the chat from Elvis. Says one strategy I've heard in building a narrative of landlords is talking about returning citizens rather than released prisoner or former convict. And I would agree, sometimes the vernacular has to change because we are talking about humans, right? And we're supporting the human condition. That's very different. And so, yes, I would agree. Returning citizens is more popularly used, or returning neighbor. And so it also helps the individual coming home from prison not to be identified as that number or as that prisoner that they were when they were in prison. Chaplain, what are your?
Let me just kind of recap the comments Brett and hearing on all this is really a hunger to succeed and a refusal to fail. And that's, I mean, I'm a returning citizen, returning neighbor, whatever. Myself, I did 2 years in Oklahoma, and that was I tell guys, hey, I worked reentry for 7 years. Like, you have to want this.
Right.
You have to want it. You have to want it.
That's it.
You have to want. I mean, like, it just has to be what you're about. And those are the people that really make it.
And everybody is different. Everybody is not the same. So everybody doesn't have the same drive. Everybody doesn't have the same support. Everyone doesn't have the same mental health condition. Everybody's not the same. So those who can come home and hit the ground running, bravo. But those who cannot, bravo that you're home, but it takes a little more time to get adjusted to societal norms as they are now. Right. I was just dealing with a guy that came home after 46 years in prison. So it was not go time for him to work. No, but it was go time to get some food that was different than what he had before. It was go time to learn how to navigate the city. Right. It was go time for some other things for him, but not everybody is the same. But I think everyone should be viewed as with the respect of humanity that we view everybody else, right? Whether they're in prison or released, because it's about the human condition.
But that's one thing that I do is I speak to what's inside of them, man, because I understand, man. Like, I don't believe that nobody down here, like on this earth, I don't believe like nobody snuck down here, right? I believe that everybody who is on this earth is supposed to be here. I believe that everybody has something that's inside of them that they are supposed to offer this earth to make it better, right? And if that's the case, then I believe that, man, this stuff, everybody has it in them to get it done. It's just about what they have been told over the course of the years, that they can't get it done, or that they ain't got what it takes. And then when they do come home, they believe that. And then that's why when they go at whatever they going at it, it's like they saying in their heads, man, I want this high level result. But in their minds, they believe that, man, hey, I'm gonna continue to approach this want for high level result with my low level effort. And they've been able to do that even though they have not gotten the results. But I believe that if anybody, man, come with high level effort, then your chances of getting high level results will be likely. But you just got to get people to understand that it's in them. And if you just give, all you can do is all you can do. But if you are doing all you can do, that's enough. But most time people are not doing all that they can do, but they haven't been confronted on that. And that's why they continue to do this low level effort and saying, man, it's just me. It's just me. No, it's not, brother, because you ain't sneaked down here like you're supposed to be here. You are in a wonderful design. So it's like people been told certain things, and now their minds are actually working against them. right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Instead of working for them, right?
Absolutely.
So
I want, Mary, did you have something to say?
I was just going to add, like, I feel like the stigma on probation officers and APA officers also has to be changed. Our working community now with the APA officers, I know here in Portsmouth, Ohio, I have utilized them more since I've been off of parole. Just reaching back out to them and saying, hey, I need help with this matter. And now they are educated in social work. And it's been one of my greatest assets to be able to utilize them as well and not look at it like they were going to put me back in jail. Because that was one of the things that I had gone through with my incarceration was I was betrayed by the law here, by the judge. A little bit about my story. Like I had sold drugs to the same judge that had put me in prison 3 different times. So I didn't trust any law enforcement officers at all. And now, like, since my thinking on that has changed and I see the willingness that they want to be able to help me has kind of opened that door also for other resources.
So I can see that you guys are a panel of professionals. So I'm going to go off script here. And, you know, I think, so when I worked reentry, one of the hardest folks I had to work with was people with charges of sexual nature, so the sex offender housing. Can you guys speak to that a little bit? Because in my experience, they're some of the hardest ones to get. You might have someone who's top of their game, but the housing options are very limited. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I can jump right in with that. I know with the agency that I work for right now, we're not able to accept them due to the vicinity of the school zones. However, there is transitional houses open. One is called the Phoenix Center. I know it's in Mount Orb. There is several locations that will allow sex offenders to be a part of a program and to do transitional housing on my end.
So you know what I'm saying, Chap. I'm just saying, like, man, hey, you go rent where you can, man. Into like it's nothing that can stop you. I just don't believe it's nothing that can stop you, man. Like, I mean, I had attempted murder on my background, drug trafficking and possession of firearms and possession of drugs. So when people looked at that, they looked at that like, man, this brother can be a bit dangerous, right? Like, you know, so but again, like nothing is, I'm telling you, man, the greatest enemy is the enemy within, man. If you don't have no enemy within, like a lot of times, man, we tell ourselves, man, what can't be done. So that's what, man, the greatest challenge is getting that person who's coming home from prison to understand who the heck they are, right? And not take on, see, a lot of times, man, we believe we are with what we did. And that's the problem, because that's a lie. You know, so, but if we start to have that education of who we are, man, that's the greatest barrier, man. Everything else, man, it can't contend when you got that online. But so I always want to like always go back there, because it's a whole bunch of stuff, you know, a whole bunch of different challenges, you know, but none is greater than overcoming that enemy that's within inside you. No greater challenge than that. And when you do that, man, nothing can stop you. Like,
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm just going to go brief because I know we only have like 9 minutes left, but here in Cuyahoga County, it is hard to help people with certain sex offenses find housing. But what isn't understood from the community or in the community are the tier levels of sex offenses. And I think that education, going back to what Mary and Carlos were talking about, educating individuals and kind of going outside the scope of what we do physically, I think the community needs to be educated on the myths about the risk of harm for recidivating, right? So
right.
I think that's that. But I do talk to a lot of landlords that offer housing to sex offenders in certain sections of our community. And there's housing available. Sometimes it's not housing where individuals might want to live, but temporarily until we can help an individual reach their next level has proven to be successful for us. So there's I tell my guys and women that have sex offenses, contact or no contact, to collect as many no's as you can, because that yes is going to be the very thing that propels you to your next.
Absolutely. 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 Just imagine if we just looked at people like as a world. So that's why I'm always doing my like this TED talk that I got coming up in October, on October 23rd in a couple of weeks. Like I'm always just educating just like the world or what it is, because so often, man, they look at the people who are incarcerated a certain way. But if we just started to look at those people who are incarcerated or not fulfilling their potential as being connected to ourselves, I believe that we would address a lot of these issues, you know. So and what I mean by that is, again, I'm going back to the to the ideology that nobody has snuck down here. Everybody who is here is supposed to be here. So then that means that they have something to offer the world for it to be a better place for everybody who lives here. If that person, if I go back into prison, if I go into the ground without offering the world what I was supposed to offer it, you suffer. And this is what I want people, I mean, people understood that. The more of us who are not fulfilling our potential, the more that the world will be the way that it is, and it's going to get worse. And if people like grasp a hold of that concept, now it'll be totally different. Now it'll be like, man, hey, hold up, man, come on, stay here. Come on, like, come get hired here, right? It would be more of an investment into that actual person. But that's just my dream over there. I know it wasn't a part of the questions, but I just had to put that out there, you know.
Yeah, I think it's important for the person coming home to really dig deep and to figure out how they got into the position to do the crime that was committed and what it is that they've done since they've been incarcerated. Everyone should be sent home with a resume so they're not strangling around trying to get an ID to get into a library, to get a resume made. There's a lot of changes that could be made within ODRC to get that person there. I know that for myself, there was a lot of things, well, you're not eligible for release until this date, but then if you file for a judicial and you leave the next day, you're not prepared. That's something that should be happening once they go in the door and reviewed the day before they leave.
So I would agree with that, Mary. Thank you. One of the things that I'm a big proponent of are comprehensive reentry plans. And so I do prepare those for attorneys that need to have the support of a reentry plan for their applications for judicial release or parole. And so our plans have been viewed and I believe accepted from what the successes that I've seen. But without a plan, I agree with you, without a plan, the chance or the risk of not attaining a goal, right, is low. So I think that plan, in addition to safe and secure housing, helps an individual and their family members, whoever their support network is, remain focused, right? Because coming home from prison is overwhelming. I don't know two people that have served time alike, and I've been doing this for almost 19 years. Everybody served time different. So I think that needs to be respected, one. And then the support network needs to be identified. I agree with you, Carlos and Mary, before the exit. And yes, it's possible to work with DRC to be able to put comprehensive plans together. So I applaud the work that DRC is doing. I mean, like, you know, I look at different prisons around the world, right? And there are no initiatives for supporting people with reentry that I can say compare to what we do here in Ohio. And I'm sure, I haven't looked at every prison, but just to have a department that has a reentry department that's doing its best. It's not perfect, trust me, I know nothing is, but it's doing its best to put forth the effort to work with advocates, right? To have community partners that we can have conversations with to help put plans together to put people in the best possible situation that we can. And then a lot of it, like you're saying, Carlos, is up to the individual. It is, but there has to be some retraining and retooling.
Absolutely.
Prison is very punitive and it works vastly on your mind. And so, Mary, I understand coming home with PTSD and coming home with some mental issues and some anxieties, because that's what that environment creates. Okay. And so, yes, but coming home, we have to decompress from all of that. And that does take time. I'll yield the rest of my time, Chaplain, because you know I can go and we've got 4 minutes. I apologize.
These panels are best when we just keep going. We got about 4 minutes left. So, Mary, Carlos, any closing thoughts here?
Yeah, so one thing that I definitely want to say is that is one of the things that I have realized just by implementing programming inside of the facility, and it's a year-long program. So one of the things that is just understanding how to be. Like a lot of times, man, we get raised and developed to be in a way to where we can't have no type of strong relationships. And everything is about relationships in this world, man. Opportunity comes through relationships. And I see that when I'm doing, like one time I was doing a program and I'm coming in, like before I give it to my people who teach the actual curricula, who are the experts. And one of the guys, man, I come in and I'm talking about just every class I talk about how I'm seeing through the eyes of somebody who has returned back into society. So I go through stuff like I done buried my brother, you know, and still went to class, right? So sometimes I gotta talk this stuff out, right? Because I'm going through something out here. And I remember the one brother who was in the class, he wanted this financial literacy. He was like, Los, man, I know you got your stuff going on, but man, let us get into this credit, man. You know, like let the facilitator go ahead and teach. And I had to put him on pause and say, hold up, brother. Like, man, I do all I can to bring these people in, right? And that's what I'm doing for y'all. Now, what's your reciprocity, right? Because every successful relationship has reciprocity. This is what I need from y'all. I need somebody to listen to what I'm going through right now. I need you to be here for me, brother. And when he heard that, he was like, man, I never did even think about that, brother. He's like, man, go ahead and finish. Go ahead. I'm here for you, brother. But that's something that, like, a lot of times when they come home, they don't understand, man. Hey, it's not just about you. How do you show reciprocity for other people? How do you come out and help, you know? And that can be the game changing. So that's something that needs to be done before too, as well. Then they can have strong relationships.
Mary, do you have any final thoughts? You're muted.
I am muted. I just want to tell everyone to believe in themselves and believe in their family. Don't ever give up on anyone, because as long as we're breathing, we have a chance.
Okay. So I think this was a very helpful session, a lot of information, a lot of experience, a lot of stories. I'm sure contact info, not the participants, but some of our panel would like to put their contact information in the chat. You know, if any participants might want to reach out and get some more information, I'm sure that would be helpful. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming, and I hope everyone else enjoys the further sessions that are offered. And just thanks to Reba and everyone for helping out, and God bless y'all.
Hey, I got the TED Talk on October 23rd. Love to see y'all there at the Lincoln Theater. That information is in the chat.
All right. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain.
Thank you all so much.
Nice meeting you, Mary.
Great information.
Thank you, Stella.
Yes, you too.